Football evolves faster than ever, but some changes leave us wondering, what happened? From power running games that dominated for decades to celebrations that got players fined thousands, these NFL trends didn't just fade away, they vanished overnight. Here's what really happened to the NFL's lost innovations. The Wildcat Formation. In 2008, the Wildcat Formation changed football in an exciting way. It wasn't like regular plays where the quarterback got the ball. Instead, the ball went straight to a running back or another player in the quarterback's spot. The offensive line was set up in a strange way, and players moved around before the snap to confuse the defense. At first, no one knew how to stop it. The Wildcat wasn't brand new. It was based on an old style of football from the 1920s called the single-wing offense. In the 1990s and 2000s, coaches from Kansas State like Bill Snyder made it better. But the formation really became famous when the Miami Dolphins used it against the New England Patriots in 2008. In that game, the Dolphins used the Wildcat 6 times, and it led to 5 touchdowns. They won the game 38-13, and everyone in the NFL started paying attention. But the Wildcat didn't last. Teams quickly figured out how to defend against it. At first, it worked because no one was ready for it. Once defenses started staying focused and ignoring the fake plays, the Wildcat became less effective. The Patriots, who were embarrassed in their first loss, showed how to stop it later that season. They only allowed the Dolphins to get 27 yards with the Wildcat and won the game 48-28, kneeling during the national anthem. In 2016, Colin Kaepernick started a very different kind of movement. During the national anthem before games, he knelt to protest racial injustice and police violence. He first sat during the anthem but changed to kneeling after talking to a former soldier, Nate Boyer, who said kneeling was more respectful. Kaepernick explained his reason clearly. He couldn't show pride in a flag for a country that oppressed Black people and people of color. He even promised to donate $1 million to help communities in need. Other players joined him quickly. His teammate Eric Reid knelt beside him, and by the first week of the season, players across the league were also protesting. Some raised their fists during the anthem, like Marcus Peters, while others, like Dallas Cowboys, locked arms to show unity. The protests sparked huge debates about race and the role of athletes in activism. But the backlash was just as big. Fans burned Kaepernick's jersey, calling him ungrateful. His career suffered, and no team signed him after that season. Studies later showed that many players who protested also faced trouble finding teams or got paid less. The NFL tried to address the issue by letting players wear social justice messages on their helmets and painting slogans like "End Racism" on the field. Over time, the kneeling protests became less common, but they started an important conversation that hasn't gone away. No fans at games. In 2020, the NFL faced a strange problem. Because of COVID-19, there were no fans in the stadiums. Games felt quiet and empty. Home field advantage, which is usually a big deal, disappeared. Home teams only won about half their games, the worst record since 1970. Without fans, referees also seemed to call more fouls against home teams. It was clear that the energy from the crowd had been a big part of the game. When fans came back in 2021, the excitement returned too. By 2023, attendance numbers were back up, proving how important fans are. 2 tight end offense. The 2 tight end offense, called 12 personnel, became famous in 2011 because of the New England Patriots. They had Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, 2 tight ends who were both amazing players. This strategy worked because defenses couldn't handle 2 tight ends at the same time. Linebackers were too slow to cover them, and defensive backs were too small to match their size. That year, Gronkowski and Hernandez had 2,237 yards and 24 touchdowns, breaking records and changing how offenses worked in the NFL. This strategy gave the team many options. Both tight ends could block or catch the ball, which made it hard for defenses to guess what was coming. Gronkowski was unstoppable in the red zone, while Hernandez could play almost anywhere on the field, even in the backfield or as a wide receiver. This system made the passing game stronger and helped with running plays too, because the tight ends could block when needed. It gave the offense a big advantage. But over time, this strategy became less popular. Finding two great tight ends with different skills wasn't easy for most teams. After Hernandez's legal troubles, even the Patriots couldn't make it work again. Teams also started using spread formations and passing more, so tight ends weren't as important. By 2020, most teams stopped using two tight ends together often. Some teams still try it occasionally, but it's not a big part of today's NFL. Comedians in the broadcast booth. In 2000, ABC did something unusual for Monday Night Football. They hired comedian Dennis Miller as a commentator. ABC wanted to attract more viewers and make the show funnier. Miller joined Al Michaels and Dan Fouts in the booth. While Miller knew a lot about football, he grew up watching the Pittsburgh Steelers. His style was very different. He used strange jokes and references that confused many fans. For example, he once said a failed Hail Mary pass was like separation of church and state. Some people liked his humor, but many didn't. Miller's time on the show didn't improve ratings, and critics said his style didn't fit football. Most fans wanted simple analysis, not jokes. Miller lasted only 2 seasons, leaving in 2001. In 2002, ABC replaced him with John Madden, who was a more traditional and popular choice. Even Miller admitted later that Madden was a better fit. Since then, no network has tried hiring a comedian as a regular commentator. It showed how hard it is to mix comedy with serious sports analysis, and now networks mostly use former players or experienced analysts for these roles. The power running game. The power running game was once one of the most important strategies in football. It was all about strength and wearing down the defense. Teams like the Washington Redskins in the 1980s used this strategy to win games. They relied on fullbacks and pulling guards to open up lanes for running backs. This style focused on running the ball over and over to control the clock and keep the other team off the field. Plays like the Redskins' counter tray became legendary, and players like John Riggins became Hall of Famers. For many years, this strategy worked well. It was great for short yardage plays and helped teams dominate physically. But in the early 2000s, it started to disappear. Rule changes made passing easier and more valuable, so teams focused more on throwing the ball. Quarterbacks became more important, and teams wanted big plays instead of slow, grinding runs. Defenses also got faster and smarter, with players like hybrid safeties who could quickly stop running plays. Data also showed that passing plays usually led to more points than running plays, so teams switched to offenses that used speed and space instead of brute force. By 2024, most teams were averaging fewer than 100 rushing yards per game, a big drop from the past. Silent count. The silent count was once a huge help for NFL teams playing in loud stadiums. In places like Seattle's Lumen Field or Kansas City's Arrowhead Stadium, the crowd could be so noisy it was impossible to hear. Imagine the sound of a jet engine or a rock concert. It was that loud. To deal with this, teams used nonverbal signals. The center might feel a tap on his leg or watch for a visual cue to snap the ball since calling out plays wasn't an option. But things have changed. During the 2020 pandemic, stadiums were almost empty, so there wasn't much crowd noise. Quarterbacks could easily shout out plays, and teams rarely needed silent counts. Coaches also started preparing players better by using artificial crowd noise in practice. This made players more used to loud environments, so they didn't need the silent count as much anymore. Silent counts have some problems too. They take away the offense's ability to trick defenders with fake snap counts. It's harder for the quarterback to change plays at the last second, and offensive linemen lose their rhythm since they have to watch for the snap instead of just listening. That's why teams now mix silent counts with traditional methods depending on the situation. Excessive celebration penalties. The NFL's rules about celebrating touchdowns have also changed a lot. It used to be so strict that fans called it the No Fun League. Back in 1984, players could be fined or penalized for celebrations that were too long or planned out. Chad Johnson once proposed to a cheerleader as part of a celebration, and Terrell Owens pulled out a Sharpie he had hidden in his sock. Both were heavily fined. By 2006, even simple things like using the football as a prop were banned. Fans hated these rules because they thought celebrations made the game more exciting. In 2017, the NFL finally listened to players and fans and made the rules looser. Players could now do group celebrations, use the football creatively, or even lie on the ground to make snow angels. But there were still limits. Offensive or mocking gestures weren't allowed, and anything that delayed the game could still get a penalty. For example, in 2024, Drake London got in trouble for pretending to shoot a gun after scoring, which upset people because of concerns about gun violence.